Today we celebrate feminine beauty in this theme and era, expressed through style, elegance, posture, and presence. Picture this. 1984. The American Mall wasn't just a shopping destination. It was the theater where teenage girls and young women perfect an art form that would define a generation. With big hair reaching skyward and bright colors that could be spotted 3 stores away. These women created a visual language of confidence that turned every corridor into a runway. What made the 80s mall scene so magnetic? Here was a generation of women who refused to blend into the background. They understood something profound. In the sprawling architecture of consumption, you had to make yourself seen. The mall became their canvas, and fashion became their paint. From the moment they stepped through those glass doors, past the fountain and the artificial plants, they were performing femininity with a boldness that had never existed before. The mall culture of the 1980s emerged from a perfect storm of economic prosperity, suburban expansion, and teenage independence. Shopping centers had evolved from simple strip plazas into climate-controlled wonderlands, complete with food courts, arcade games, and endless opportunities for social display. For the first time in history, young women had both the disposable income and the social freedom to create their own style tribes. The mall wasn't just where they shopped, it was where they became themselves. The 80s mall look began with the silhouette. Oversized everything balanced against fitted everything else. Picture a young woman walking past the orange Julius stand. Her shoulders dramatically broadened by a fuchsia blazer with rolled sleeves pushed up to her elbows. The blazer hung loose and boxy, but underneath, a fitted tank top in electric blue hugged her torso, creating that distinctive contrast between volume and curve that defined the decade. Her jeans, and they were always jeans, sat high on her waist, often acid-washed or stone-washed to pale perfection, tapering dramatically toward her ankles, where they met canvas, sneakers, or low boots. Color was everything, and subtlety was nothing. These women painted themselves in neon pinks, electric blues, bright yellows, and that particular shade of purple that seemed to exist only in 1985. They mixed patterns with fearless abandon. Geometric prints with animal prints, stripes with polka dots, creating combinations that shouldn't have worked but absolutely did. A typical mall outfit might feature a striped sweater in 3 different colors, worn over leggings printed with abstract shapes, finished with leg warmers in yet another pattern entirely. Accessories were armor and art combined. Chunky plastic jewelry in primary colors adorned their necks, wrists, and ears. Multiple bracelets jangled as they gestured, and earrings swung with every turn of their heads. Often geometric shapes or oversized hoops that caught the fluorescent mall lighting. Their purses were substantial affairs, often in bright leather or canvas, worn across the body or clutched confidently in manicured hands. Scrunchies held back their voluminous hair, and these weren't just functional, they were statements, often matching or deliberately clashing with the rest of their ensemble. The hair deserves its own monument. Mall hair of the 80s was architecture. Using products like Aquanet hairspray and hot rollers, these women constructed elaborate sculptures that defied gravity and good sense. The higher the hair, the closer to heaven, and mall hair reached for the heavens with evangelical fervor. Feathered bangs swept dramatically across foreheads, while the back and sides were teased, sprayed, and sculpted into formations that could withstand a Category 3 hurricane. This wasn't just styling, it was engineering, and every woman carried a small arsenal of touch-up tools in her oversized purse. The makeup completed the transformation from ordinary teenager to mall warrior. Eyes were the focal point, rimmed in electric blue or bright purple eyeshadow that extended nearly to the eyebrows. Multiple coats of mascara created lashes that looked like they could generate their own weather system. Blush was applied with enthusiasm, creating rosy cheeks that could be seen from across the food court. And the lips, glossy, often in shades of pink or coral that complemented the overall color story of each carefully constructed look. The 80s mall woman moved through her domain with a confidence that was both practiced and instinctive. Her every gesture calculated to catch light and attention as she navigated the marble corridors of consumer paradise. But the look was only the beginning of the story. The true art of 80s mall fashion revealed itself in how these women inhabited their spaces, transforming routine shopping into sophisticated social choreography. The food court was their grand ballroom. Here, gathered around orange plastic tables beneath hanging plants and skylights, they perfected the delicate art of eating French fries without disturbing their lip gloss. The ritual began with the careful arrangement of shopping bags, contempo casuals, the limited, Spencer's, positioned just so to display the afternoon's conquests. They sat with perfect posture, shoulders back to showcase those dramatic blazer lines, hair carefully arranged to avoid contact with the high-backed chairs. Conversation flowed between bites of orange Julius and slices of Sparrow pizza, punctuated by the gentle rattling of plastic bangles and the soft whisper of members-only jackets. Window shopping elevated to performance art. These weren't casual browsers, they were curators, critics, and consumers rolled into one perfectly coordinated package. They moved in pairs or small groups. Their reflection multiplied in every storefront as they evaluated the merchandise with the seriousness of museum patrons. At the Limited, they fingered fabrics and discussed color combinations with the expertise of fashion editors. At Casual Corner, they debated the merits of shoulder pad heights and jacket lengths. Every store window became a stage for animated discussion, hands gesturing dramatically as they pointed out details, their voices carrying just far enough to ensure nearby shoppers could overhear their confident pronouncements. The dressing room was sacred space. Behind those thin curtains, transformation occurred. They helped each other zip, adjust, and evaluate, their voices dropping to conspiratorial whispers as they discussed fit, style, and whether a particular shade of magenta truly brought out their eyes. The ritual of trying on clothes was never hurried. Each garment was considered from multiple angles, discussed, debated, and either celebrated or dismissed with the gravity of diplomatic negotiations. Even the most mundane activities gained significance under their influence. Walking past Spencer's, they moved with the measured pace of models, each step deliberate and fluid. Their shopping bags swung in rhythm with their stride, and they seemed to instinctively understand how to position themselves for maximum visual impact. Escalator rides became opportunities for posed conversation, their profiles artfully arranged against the moving backdrop of the mall's central atrium. The arcade provided its own theater. Here, leaning against Pac-Man machines or watching boyfriends play Galaga, they maintained their composure even in environments filled with electronic noise and flashing lights. They had mastered the art of looking engaged without actually participating, their perfectly applied makeup never betraying a moment of genuine surprise or excitement. Even cheering required technique. Enthusiastic enough to show support, controlled enough to preserve their carefully constructed appearance. Saturday afternoons meant the mall was their kingdom, and they ruled it with the benevolent authority of teenage queens. They knew every store manager, every sales cycle, every promotional calendar. They could navigate the crowds with grace, slipping between slower shoppers without ever breaking their conversational stride or disturbing the precise architecture of their hair. The influence of these mall mavens extended far beyond the climate-controlled corridors where they held court, rippling outward to reshape how an entire generation understood style, consumption, and the performance of femininity. The 1980s mall aesthetic became the template for how young women across America understood the relationship between fashion, space, and social power. The impact reached far beyond those weekend pilgrimages to the shopping center. Department stores scrambled to recreate the mall energy in their own spaces, installing brighter lighting and contemporary music to match the atmosphere these women had created. Fashion magazines like Seventeen and Mademoiselle began featuring mall-specific styling advice, recognizing that this wasn't just casual wear, it was a distinct fashion category with its own rules and requirements. Television shows started showcasing mall scenes not as background settings, but as primary locations where important social dynamics unfolded. Understanding that viewers recognized these spaces as theaters of female empowerment, the economic ripple effects were staggering. Retailers reported that teenage girls and young women were driving purchasing decisions not just for themselves but for entire families. The confidence they displayed in navigating consumer choices influenced mothers, younger sisters, and even friends from other social circles. Brands like Benetton, Esprit, and Forenza built entire marketing strategies around the mall aesthetic, creating advertisements that looked like candid shots of these stylish young women in their natural habitat. The success of stores like the Limited Express and Contempo Casuals proved that there was serious money in understanding how these women wanted to look and where they wanted to shop. Perhaps most significantly, the mall became a training ground for female economic independence. These weren't women waiting for others to make their fashion choices. They were earning money from part-time jobs at those same mall stores, learning retail skills, and developing sophisticated understanding of consumer psychology. Many worked at the very stores where they shopped, creating a feedback loop where their style influence directly translated into sales expertise. They learned to read customer preferences, understand inventory cycles, and master the art of suggestion selling, skills that would serve them well in careers far beyond retail. The look itself became a form of cultural export. Small-town malls from Ohio to Oregon began seeing the same aesthetic choices, as young women carried the style codes they'd absorbed from larger metropolitan areas back to their own communities. The democratization of fashion that the mall represented meant that a teenager in suburban Detroit could access the same style vocabulary as her counterpart in a California shopping center, creating a shared visual language that transcended geography. The three feminine signatures that defined this unforgettable era were unmistakable in their power. First, the architecture of volume. Those dramatically teased hairstyles and oversized blazers that announced their presence before they even spoke, creating silhouettes that commanded attention and respect in every corridor and food court. Second, the fearless embrace of color and pattern as emotional expression. Bright hues and bold combinations that rejected the notion that women should fade into backgrounds, instead demanding to be seen, remembered, and celebrated. Third, the transformation of consumption into performance art. The way they turned shopping from mundane necessity into sophisticated social theater, demonstrating that choosing what to wear and where to buy it could be acts of creativity, intelligence, and cultural leadership. These women understood something profound about the relationship between style and power in the modern world. They recognized that in a consumer-driven society, the ability to navigate, influence, and ultimately shape retail environments was a form of cultural authority. They weren't just buying clothes. They were buying into a vision of femininity that was bold, confident, and unapologetically visible. Today, when we see young women curating their personal brands on social media or confidently negotiating professional environments, we're witnessing the legacy of those 80s mall pioneers. They proved that fashion choices could be strategic decisions, that shopping could be a social skill, and that the performance of femininity could be both powerful and playful. Their influence extends into contemporary fashion cycles, social media aesthetics, and even the design of modern retail spaces. all of which still bear traces of their revolutionary approach to style as empowerment. The mall may have evolved, and the specific details of fashion may have shifted. But the fundamental lesson these women taught remains relevant. Confidence, creativity, and the courage to be seen are always in style, and feminine beauty finds its most authentic expression when women claim space, make choices, and move through the world on their own terms.